Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'd like to present to you guys with another What If in Wings of Fire. What if winter worked for Scarlet? This was suggested to me by Lynn Studios and I knew I just had to do something with this one. It's too good of an opportunity to pass up. This video contains spoilers for Moon Rising and a little bit of winter turning, so please keep that in mind. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. In Moon Rising, it was revealed that Queen Scarlet was using her dream visitor to torment Icicle. She threatened to kill Hailstorm if she didn't assassinate the Dragonets of Destiny, and a reluctant Icicle ended up agreeing. Despite her failed assassination attempts, Scarlet's torture affected Icicle greatly. She nearly lost her sanity and even burned herself awake so she wouldn't have to listen to the ex-Queen's threats. Scarlet was teasing her at the thought of getting Hailstorm back, and Icicle would do anything just to see her brother again. However, what if things went differently? What if winter was the one to work for Scarlet? Scarlet impatiently paced back and forth across the smooth cobblestone floor. Her tongue flicked in and out, her breath coming out in small hisses. She dreamed of the day she could exact her revenge on Glory, the one who took what she cared about above all else, her beauty and her throne. Scarlet had been held prisoner by the one who used to be her ally, and her whole kingdom thought she was dead. Scarlet hoped to do the same to Glory, and the other misfits she called her friends. The Dragonets of Destiny had taken everything from her, and now it was time to return the favor. Peering down at the shiny gem hidden away in a pile of rocks, Scarlet placed it in her talons. Running her scales against the smooth surface, she sat in anticipation. A dream visitor. The only way I can actually get my wish. She knew it would be foolish to approach her daughter for the throne now, so why not eliminate the Dragonets of Destiny first? One by one she planned to pick them off while Glory watched, unable to move a muscle. Then she would feel like the powerless one as her friends died before her eyes. Just as powerless as I felt when she ripped my life away from me, Scarlet bitterly thought. But the question of who to send to do the assassinations was something constantly on her mind. Which one would actually choose to listen to her, and what leverage would she have? Certainly her threats wouldn't amount to much due to her current lack of power, so she had to choose something she could actually threaten with. But the thought of a certain Icewing came into mind. Hailstorm. Many years prior, she had kidnapped an Icewing prince and planned to use him later as leverage. So to Storm for safekeeping, Scarlet had used an animus enchanted necklace to conceal his appearance and personality. Hailstorm had been transformed into a dopey Skywing, oblivious to the true peril he was in. One of those blithering idiot Icewings at Jade Mountain Academy would certainly love to get their older brother back. In return for a few deaths, that is. Scarlet had heard rumors of Jade Mountain Academy when she walked the streets of possibility, cloaked and lurking in the shadows. A school where dragons learned to get along after the war. A school where all the Dragonets of Destiny would be at one given moment. It was almost like they were asking to be killed by the one who swore vengeance. I'll have one of the Icewing princes or princesses attend the academy to do my work for me, she thought. Hailstorm will be the leverage, and I'll kill him if they don't take care of the Dragonets. Peering down at the dream visitor once more, a devilish grin lit up Scarlet's face. The one who lost Hailstorm in the first place. Winter the Icewing. He would do anything to feel like a hero again. To feel like he never lost his brother. It was his fault, so why not make him feel like he can save his older brother? With that thought in mind, Scarlet held the dream visitor in her claws. Twirling it around, she finally lay down on the smooth cobblestone floor of the cave she found a temporary home in. Yes, Scarlet thought. This will be thrilling! The nightmares of Hailstorm's capture seemed to plague Winter's mind every single night. It had been years, but every moment without his older brother pained him in ways he couldn't describe. As a result, Winter had become cold, calculating, and distant. He felt as though he had failed the one he loved most in his life, and Winter could never forgive himself unless he could get Hailstorm back. When the darkness beckoned him during a dream, he couldn't help but be curious of the offer. But when the figure emerged from the shadows, Winter's heart picked up erratically. A melted face with cold, bloodshot eyes. The form of the ex-queen loomed over him, her tongue flicking in and out of her mouth with a sense of impatience. Winter the Icewing Prince, she began. The one who lost his brother in my troop several years ago. Do you remember that day? Winter hesitated slightly. Her presence felt too real to be a nightmare. This was different. What about it? He gritted through his teeth. Scarlet's furious and vengeful gaze was unsettling, and Winter stood rigid on the spot. It wasn't fear he felt. He would never admit to that. It felt like a new feeling entirely. Scarlet smiled, her ugly teeth flashing. I know you'd do anything to get him back. I've been watching your dreams, Winter. Watching you. And I can help you get Hailstorm back. It was your fault, but soon you'll be able to embrace him again. Winter scoffed. What's in it for you? All I want in return is for you to kill all the Dragonets of Destiny. I know you're Jade Mountain Academy, Winter. I know you can do it. You're strong, smart, and stubborn. You have the capability to kill them all. The Icewing hesitated, staring up at Scarlet. She had to be lying, right? She probably had Hailstorm locked in a dungeon somewhere, rotting away and dying of starvation. He might even be dead. And if he came back to him, would Hailstorm ever forgive Winter for what had happened? After a moment of silence, he finally responded. Where is he? Scarlet let out a humorless laugh, her breasts coming out in hisses of annoyance. He's safe, Winter. I would never let any harm befall an Icewing Prince, simply for the fact of leverage. I will not tell you where he's being kept, but I can assure you he's been fed properly. Hailstorm doesn't even realize he's been taken. In fact, he likes it here. Confused by Scarlet's previous statement, he tried lingering on the thought of Hailstorm being okay. Scarlet wasn't one to keep her promises, but if she could return him back home safely, maybe Hailstorm would forgive Winter. Not all of the Dragonets of Destiny are here, Scarlet, he began. Glory is currently overseeing her duties in the Rainforest Kingdom. The others are all here. I know you want Glory dead. She's the one who took everything from you. But too bad, you're not getting your wish. There's no way I'm traveling to the Rainforest to kill the most protected and dangerous queen alive. You're never getting what you desire, not from me, not from anyone else. Scarlet inhaled sharply, smoke seething from her nostrils. She had come this far, gotten a hold of the Dream Visitor, finally spoken to someone who had the capability to kill the one she despised. Now he didn't want to do it. Just perfect. I can make adjustments, Scarlet said finally. Maybe if you kill them off all at once, she'll hear the news and see the bodies herself. Then the pathetic Rainwing will feel as though she failed them. It's cruel irony, isn't it? Winter stood there, rooted in place. His muscles had never been this tense, and his breath came out shallow and rushed. He wasn't a killer, except his queen ordered it. So why was he seriously considering killing the Dragonets of Destiny just because a mentally insane ex-queen claimed to have his brother? But the constant nightmares seemed to speak to him in whispers. Do it, Winter. Hailstorm would want you to free him. Debating with himself, Winter realized he needed more time to decide. Give me time, he asked, fear seeping into his voice. At the sound of his trembling words, Winter snapped his mouth shut. Scarlet either seemed to not notice or didn't care, and responded coolly. Fine, you have until tomorrow night to provide me with an answer. If you say no, Scarlet mimicked slitting her throat and cackled. She faded away in his dream, the echoes of her demented laugh still ringing in his ears. One night to make the biggest decision of his life. Winter's second day at Jade Mountain Academy seemed to go by in a blur. He wasn't distracted by the hyper and energetic Rainwing Dragonet, or the annoying Sandwing. Winter's thoughts raced with all the possibilities of if he went through with the plan. But instead of thinking of what his queen would want to do, like he had previously used as his decision-making process, Winter focused on what Hailstorm would want. He would want to be free, right? Winter thought to himself. And then maybe he could forgive me, because I was the one who let him get captured. It's my fault. I can redeem myself. Whenever anyone tried to speak to him, Winter snapped back to reality in an unprofessional manner. He usually stumbled when he heard his name being called, as the train of thought he had going disappeared. Winter angrily scolded himself, worried that he was losing the royal manner in which he behaved. You're royalty, so act like it. He began to spiral into every possible outcome when a curious Nightwing approached him. She tapped him on the shoulder lightly, causing Winter to flinch backwards. Are you okay? She quietly asked. You've been sort of spacey all day. Looking into her eyes, Winter remembered her name instantly. Moonwatcher. His heart fluttered when she looked back at him, though he tried to quell the feeling. Winter didn't understand why he hesitated, and regained his regal posture instantly. I'm fine, was all he could get out. The reply was sharp and hasty, and Moon didn't seem to be satisfied by the response. I'm here if you ever need to talk or anything, Moonwatcher mumbled, walking in the other direction. Winter wanted to claw his eyes out in shame and rage. That's it. I'm just going to get this over with so I can actually focus on the situation at hand. Glacier sent me to the school for a reason, so I need to act like I belong here. Once the Dragonets are dead, I'll be reunited with Hailstorm. That's all I need right now. Winter began to reminisce on the memories of his early childhood. Hailstorm seemed so happy around him, laying a claw on his shoulder and laughing heartily. Hailing with confidence, the Icewing Prince realized he had finally made his decision. He was going to get his brother back, no matter the cost. That night, Winter made a hasty excuse to get to his room early. The other members of his winglet seemed to nod, not caring the reason why. But Moonwatcher's gaze on him lingered, and he felt his face turning red. Shaking his head, Winter stormed off to his dormitory. Moon's eyes followed him a bit longer, and then her gaze shifted to Keebley, who was asking her a question. Sinking off to his room, Winter lay on the mattress he was assigned to. Trying to breathe deeply, Winter closed his eyes. He fell into a quick doze, which ended up turning into a fitful and restless sleep by the time the sun had set. The world around him blackened and was replaced with white. Sure enough, Scarlet stood up been before, a desperate look displayed in her face. The second she noticed Hailstorm, she shook herself and tried regaining her posture. "I'll do it," was all he said. Thoughts of committing murder still flashed in his mind, and he tried overpowering them with the images of himself and Hailstorm laughing together. Scarlet grinned happily, a look of excitement on her face. It was unlike anything Winter had ever seen before. "This'll be thrilling, won't it?" Scarlet barked out a laugh, then straightened herself and looked at Winter. "After it is done and Glory sees the corpses, Hailstorm will return back to you. I'm not one to keep my promises, but you can trust me, Icewing Prince. When it comes to something I'm passionate about, I will keep my word." Winter nodded slightly, gazing at his talons in shame. His throat felt dry, each swallow becoming harder and harder as his mind was clouded with thoughts. He couldn't imagine seeing his white claws coated in another dragon's blood. Scarlet spoke again, her voice shrill and serious. "You have 2 months to plan out the murders and get rid of those Dragonets of Destiny. If not—" Scarlet again imitated stabbing and the slitting of her throat, cackling once more. "I won't let you down, Scarlet. But if I hear you laid a talon on my brother, I'll kill you." His response only made the Skywing Queen laugh louder, but she managed to nod. "Of course, Winter the Icewing." As the dream started to fade away, Winter could hear Scarlet screaming, "Thrilling! Thrilling!" manically in the background. The echoes of her laugh were the last things he heard before he found himself in a restless sleep for the night. That morning at breakfast, Winter could hardly focus. Planning on how the murders would occur was more difficult than he had anticipated. If he killed one dragonet at a time, everyone would catch on and each would be guarded somewhere safe. He had to kill them all in one night, then let Glory see the massacre. His mind raced with the thoughts, but the sound of a voice aroused him. "Are you going to finish that?" the seeming asked, smiling softly at Winter. It was just Turtle, one of his clawmates. Winter shook his head, sliding his plate over to Turtle. He felt sick in his stomach, and knew that it would be a long time before he would ever actually be able to eat something. The excited smile that lit up on the seeming's face seemed to cause his muscles to relax. Winter immediately shook himself, trying to regain his royal posture once more. He's just a nobody. Stop caring about his emotions. Unlike the last day, everything seemed to go by as slow as possible. Now that Winter had sort of an idea on how it would be done, he had some leisure time to enjoy the school as much as he could. He had to admit that he was internally furious when Glacier brought up the idea of him going to a school with mixed tribes, but Winter had grown a liking to it. It wasn't something he would admit, though. Icicle, Winter's sister, nudged him on the shoulder when they were walking to lunch. "Are you okay? You've been acting like a total spaz all today and yesterday." "It's noticeable," Winter thought, but responded coolly. "Nothing's wrong." Icicle glared at him, her eyes analyzing every small movement he made. She'd received the same body language and posture lessons he had, and she knew something was off with her brother. "You're such an embarrassment," she began sharply. "I told Mother not to allow you here, because I knew you'd screw up and tarnish the Royal Icewing name. But she insisted that since her aunt allowed your presence and requested it, you had to stay." Her cold and calculating glare made Winter twitch with anxiety. He tried brushing off the feeling, resuming the royal stance. "Shut up." And with that, Winter walked away towards the lunchroom, leaving an annoyed and shocked Icicle behind. After his interaction with his sister, Winter found himself panicking slightly as new thoughts and worries entered his mind. What am I even going to use to kill them? How will I get each of them alone? Killing them one by one in the same day seemed to be the best option, as he couldn't take on several dragons twice his size alone. Even with his training, he would surely fail with all of them attacking him at once. Defeat the smaller, weaker ones first, so you'll have enough energy to tackle the harder ones, Winter thought to himself. All day he began pondering the details of his escape and how he would meet up with Scarlet, and decided he needed a break. Exhaling with exhaustion, Winter made his way to the library. He sprawled himself on some of the pillows, closing his eyes and trying to relax. He knew Icicle would scold him for his unroyalty-like behavior later, but he needed just a moment alone. A moment where he could get away from the paranoid thoughts that plagued him. "Excuse me?" A small voice squeaked out, peering at Winter's face as he lay in the pillows. "What?" Winter audibly groaned, a scowl displayed on his face. The moment he looked at the figure, his heart nearly stopped. Sunny, the Sandman Dragon out of Destiny. The dragon he had to kill soon. Her innocent and worried gaze fell on him, and she apologized quickly. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. I was just asking if you were all right," Sunny said. Her warm scales touched some of his cold ones, creating a relaxing feeling Winter had never known before. "Oh, yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for asking." And in that moment, Winter didn't care about his royalty status. And frankly, Sunny didn't either. She looked at him out of friendly concern, smiling at his temperament. "We usually just don't see dragons moaning into pillows, and I was worried." She let out a genuine chuckle, her sparkling eyes looking into his. For those few moments of light conversation he made with her, Winter felt a peace he had never felt before. Smiling with contentment, the two parted ways, and relaxed Winter headed towards his dormitory for the night. Only then did it hit him that he was supposed to report into Scarlet that night. How could he? He surely wouldn't be able to tell her he was fraternizing with the enemy, and that he had grown a liking towards the odd little sandwing. "Just don't tell her," Winter muttered to himself. "She doesn't have to know. Besides, you can just kill the others, and maybe Scarlet will let her live. She wouldn't notice if the tiny sandwing scampered off, right?" Closing his eyelids, Winter prepared for his confrontation with Scarlet. And things did not go the way he planned. "What were you thinking?" Scarlet shouted, her voice shaking with rage. "You're making it painfully obvious you're up to something." All Winter had done was explain the events of the day to Scarlet, carefully omitting his reaction with Sunny in the library. He couldn't understand why she screamed with pure fury at him. "How?" Winter replied, raising his voice. "Now your sister is concerned for you." Trying to collect herself, Scarlet inhaled and exhaled deeply. "Do not spend time with her. Understood? She knows how you usually behave, and she could blow this entire operation." Oh, Winter thought. He hadn't really taken notice of his previous conversation with his sister, or how she saw through his lies. It was painfully obvious now, and his face turned bright red in embarrassment. He flinched at her raised tone, the same way he had done in his youth when Clean Glacier angrily chided him for his wrongdoings. The same way she freaked out and blamed him when Hailstorm was taken. Shuddering at the thought, Winter tried to change the subject. "Scarlet, I've been having second thoughts about all this." Her eruption of fury stopped, and she turned her head to swiftly face him. "What did you just say?" Her eerie appearance became more clear to him than it had ever appeared before. Her eyes were bloodshot and red, and the bag under her eyes seemed more prominent than usual. The side of Scarlet's face that had been melted off seemed to be illuminated in the light. The sight sent a shiver down his spine, though Winter tried hiding his momentary fear. "She's just in a dream. She can't hurt you." As though to answer in thought, Scarlet responded, "I can't hurt you here, but I can hurt your sister." She seemed creepily satisfied by the look of horror on his face, grinning evilly. "Mental torment is often described as being worse than physical torture," Scarlet began. "Maybe I can just stalk her dreams, turn them into nightmares, and leave her in the state you were when you lost Hailstorm." Her tongue continued flicking in and out of her mouth, her eyes narrowing with excitement. "Maybe when I'm done with her, she'll be the one to cause damage to herself." "No!" Winter screamed. His emotions finally shone through, waves of panic seeping into his mind. He had lost one sibling. He would never allow anything to happen to Icicle. Even if she hated him with a fiery passion for the mistake he had made, Winter just wanted her to be happy. He wanted her to see the day they could all be reunited with Hailstorm. "If you lay a talon on her," he gritted through his teeth, "you'll what? Kill me? You don't even know where I am, first off. And secondly, you know that if I'm dead, you'll never have your precious Hailstorm back." Winter hated to admit it, but it was almost as though she had read his mind. He was stuck. His options were either follow Scarlet or lose everything. "I won't let you down." Scarlet grinned once more, fading away slowly. "I know you won't, Winter." With the threat of his sister in danger, reality had finally hit for Winter. Now it wasn't just rescuing Hailstorm and earning his family's respect. It was a matter of life or death for several dragons he loved. Winter continued spiraling in dark thoughts, avoiding Icicle at every turn. Though it seemed to arouse suspicion more, disobeying Scarlet was something he couldn't do. He hadn't even noticed when his name was whispered from several times in class. "Winter!" the voice said, louder than the first few times. He snapped back to reality, realizing he was in a lecture about the history of the scorching. Winter turned to his left, seeing an anxious and worried Keeley looking at him. "Hey, is everything all right?" "Why wouldn't it be?" he replied in an annoyed tone. Winter had the ability to mask his emotions well with annoyance, covering up any sense of fear or worry he may experience. It was something his parents had taught him at a young age, and was a skill he would never lose. Apparently he hadn't tried enough to hide it, because Keebly frowned. "Whoa there," Simon began. "I was just checking up on you. Moonwatcher and I have been sort of worried about you. You've been seeming kind of frantic and distant lately." Keebly's expression turned dead serious. "Is there something wrong?" Winter tried laughing with mock amusement. "I'm fine, Keebly. Now turn the other way before Webbs assigns us with extra homework for talking." Keebly hesitated for a very long moment, and turned back to face the chalkboard. He cast anxious glances at Winter every few moments, so he pretended not to notice. Even Moonwatcher was on the edge of her seat, observing Winter's shallow breathing. "Icicle is right," he thought. "It's painfully obvious." The next few nights seemed to pass by relatively quickly without Scarlet haunting his dreams. She had agreed to give him time to think things out, but threatened endless torment if he didn't provide her with an update soon. But since Scarlet wasn't there to hear his rushed summary of what had happened each day, Winter decided to take some time to relax. That moment with Sunny in the library was probably his favorite at the academy so far, but he couldn't bear to look at her again. Whenever he did, he saw flashes of what would happen in only a month. Time was flying by faster than he had anticipated, and the thought made Winter feel uneasy. Sitting down on the ground for lunch, Winter began ripping apart a fish and gulping it down hastily. He heard his classmates laughing in a corner nearby, and decided to walk over to them. They seemed so happy, so carefree. Moonwatcher took notice of his appearance as he inched closer to them and waved. "You're welcome to sit with us if you want," she said. It was almost as though she had read his mind, and Winter nodded quietly. The Ragnats had formed a circle, each sharing different kinds of berries they had found. They were telling stories and laughing together, and the sight made Winter really come to understand how distant he had been from everything. Looking around the cafeteria cave, he saw friendship everywhere. Carefree dragonets were play wrestling for food, making silly jokes, and staring at the beautiful skyline outside. For the first time in a month, Winter decided to stop thinking about what Scarlet would think and join the group. Though Keebly suspiciously eyed him at first, Winter had become welcome to the conversation quickly. Kinkajou was telling everyone the daring tale of how she and Glory escaped from the Nightwing Kingdom. Turtle was telling everyone about the scroll he was writing, and the plot even seemed to interest Winter, who previously hadn't had a liking for reading. Peril was showing everyone what her fire scales could do, and Moon was laughing at Keebly's jokes. The atmosphere felt light and airy, providing Winter with a sense of happiness he rarely ever experienced. And he finally forgot about the issue at hand as he conversed with his classmates. Smiling genuinely, Winter left the cafeteria feeling warm and content. That feeling did not last. That night, Winter tossed and turned in his bed. The conflicting thoughts of his task from Scarlet still seemed to overpower any sense of actual joy he could feel about the events of the day. But after the kindness he'd received at the academy, Winter finally faced the truth. He couldn't kill the Dragonets of Destiny. He would lose the friends he had made, which was the worst part of it. He had grown to like the company of the Dragonets of Destiny as well, especially Sunny. Her heartfelt smiles always made him feel welcome, and he talked to her about the stress he was feeling. Though he blamed it on being in a new place instead, he was able to convey his emotions nonetheless. Clay was always sure to provide Winter with his favorite food after he noticed how he hadn't been eating before, and the act of kindness really made Winter feel like this was his home. Dragons here actually cared for him. Even though Tsunami was harsh, she occasionally cast smiles at him during their training classes, and even winked after he correctly learned a fighting move everyone was struggling on. Turflight always made him feel welcome in the library, and recommended some light reading in order to take Winter's mind off things. For his first month at Jade Mountain Academy, things were going better than he ever could have hoped. Winter didn't want to lose it, especially at the claws of Queen Scarlet. Saying no to her face surely wouldn't work, and Winter knew he couldn't just stop sleeping entirely. It was time to tell someone what was happening. Winter anxiously approached Moonwatcher, who was curled up with a scroll in the library. She looked over at him the moment he stepped in the entryway and smiled warmly. The Iceman tried to smile back, though his nerves and fear of her judgment seemed to overtake him. As time ticked closer, with only a week before Scarlet would tell him it was time to kill the Dragons of Destiny, Winter knew something had to be done. He also knew that Moonwatcher was the one to tell about this. The way she softly complimented him always made his heart flutter in a way he couldn't explain. Whenever he was around her, he could forget about the challenge he knew he had to face. "Moonwatcher, I have to have a serious talk with you," he said. Winter heard his voice tremble slightly, though Moon took no notice of it. She nodded, patting a pillow next to her, and motioned for him to sit down. Taking a deep breath, Winter explained all of it to her. The way Scarlet haunted his dreams, the fact of her using Hailstorm as leverage, and how she wanted the Dragonets of Destiny dead. He didn't leave out a single thing, only presenting her with the truth. Horror was displayed in her face at first, but she never interrupted him. After the explanation, Winter closed his eyes in fear. She was going to hate him, just like everyone else. He was done for sure, surely. But Moon's comment came out in a soft whisper. Winter, it's okay. He opened his eyes slowly, looking down at her face. Winter finally made eye contact with the Nightwing, and she returned the gesture. Her eyes sparkled and twinkled in the light, the sun shining through the makeshift windows. Moon wrapped her claws in his, and Winter didn't even try to hold back his emotions anymore. He let the tears roll down his face, finally letting everything out. Moonwatcher didn't judge him or laugh at him, but rather petted him silently, whispering reassurances. I'm glad you told me, she said finally. Winter looked up from where his head had been digging into her shoulder. I didn't know Scarlet was still alive, but we'll have to tell the teachers. They should know Scarlet was planning an assassination attempt, even if it won't happen anytime soon. Winter nodded silently, refusing to look into her eyes again. He had told her, and it wasn't as bad as his mind had told him it would be. Breathing deeply, Winter hugged Moonwatcher as tight as he could. She smiled, embracing him. It had been the first time he'd hugged someone since Hailstorm was around. And it was the first time he had cried since Hailstorm had been taken. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Oh my goodness, this is the longest I've ever spent on a what if. If you're wondering what happened next, Winter and Moon would inform the Dragonets about Scarlet dream visiting Winter, and how she would have claimed to have Hailstorm. They would have agreed to go looking for her soon and figure out a way to stop Scarlet once and for all. And in the end, they would get Hailstorm back. As for Winter, he would spend the rest of his time at Jade Mountain Academy with his friends. He would finally fit in with them, becoming less distant than he was at the beginning. They would all allow him into their friend group immediately, welcoming him as their classmate. Moon ends a what if on a happy note, not clickbait. I know. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.